do introductions, go ahead and stamp on where you're zooming in from. On the left here is a state. Just click anywhere. It doesn't have to be real accurate. So I'm just going to start with who's at the top of my screen. So Laura, would you say hello? Tell us where you're zooming from and what you're interested in solar today. And to come off mute, you just click on that microphone. All right, Laura, maybe we'll come back to you. How about John? Say hello. And you can always just push the space bar. If you have the Zoom screen in front of you, you can just push the space bar and you'll come off mute. All right, John, we'll come back to you. How about Peter? Say hello.
Hey, hello. Deer Park, so northwest of Chicago. I'm trying to mark it on a map here, but I don't see it happening. I have solar, and I'll be on noon. I'll be doing one of these sessions myself.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. George, would you like to introduce yourself? I'm seeing check marks, but they're not showing up on the map. I'm wondering why. You're checking on the map?
No.
So George, if you want to come off mute, you can just push the space bar. All right, I'm just seeing CCOM. I'm not sure who CCOM is. If you introduce yourself.
Mike Stefan says that Zoom isn't able to find his mic, so.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, okay.
Stefan, do you want to just type in the chat where you're zooming from and what's your interest in solar? All right, Irene, I know your audio is working.
Yes, I'm in Wheaton, and my
Okay.
interest is looking down the road to maybe install it on my home and figuring out what I need to know to do that.
Excellent. You're in the right place. Okay, Clarence, are you able to come off mute and introduce yourself?
No, right here. You gotta scroll by your name and click.
Hey, this is Clarence. How
Hey,
you doing?
Clarence. Good.
Yes. So I'm interested in the solar piece, and I realized that there was a tour this morning, and I wanted to learn everything I could learn about the install, and that's why I'm here.
Excellent. And where are you zooming in from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Awesome. All right, and I see someone who's in here. It's just a phone number, 815-335-2006. Would you like to introduce yourself? All right. Well, we had a few of us able to introduce themselves. I was going to show you a little bit of some background on solar, some things about why go solar. And I would say all these I would check off for me. You know, I think providing national energy security, you know, the thing about solar is you can get it from your backyard. You can get it from your rooftop. And so we don't have to rely on getting energy out of the ground or anywhere else. So that provides security. A big reason for me was reducing carbon emissions and some concerns about the environment. And related to that, you know, it doesn't pollute. So it improves public health and air quality, even though you can't see it in the air. Especially, I live in Chicago. I live in West Chicago, and the air quality in this area is not real good. Another thing is it creates careers. You know, in the United States, one of the fastest growing jobs is installers. So it creates a lot of jobs, a lot of careers. We've had a lot of jobs here in the state of Illinois created in the last few years. It saves money on the electric bill. I haven't paid anything on my electric bill in 4 or 5 months, I think. And if the sun doesn't come up someday, we're in a lot bigger trouble. So it really is an inexhaustible energy supply. So those are some good reasons to go solar. Some myths is that if you produce more, and I'll show you my system in a little bit, like, well, right now it's cloudy here, so I might be using most of what is produced, but when I overproduce, it goes into the grid, it goes to my neighbors, and I get credit for that. We get plenty of sun in the state of Illinois. I added a heat pump last year, but prior to that, I would get 100% of my electricity needs from the sun. So that's plenty of sun. And I do not have an ideal installation, as you'll see in a little bit. It's too cold here. You know, they won't withstand all that weather. They're built to withstand that. So they do just fine. It's too expensive. It does, you know, it's a significant investment, but I would say it's the best investment that you can make in your home. It's the only thing that saves you money, increases your home value without raising your taxes. And on a sunny day, it brings joy and happiness to your life. So it's the best investment you can make on your home. Some people think it'll be harder to sell your house. You know, it's a little early in the state of Illinois, but around the country, actually, people can sell their houses faster and for more money. So it's a little early to tell in the state of Illinois because it's not as common as, say, states in California where they're looking for that. Not sure that people are looking for that just yet in Illinois. Solar panels will cause your roof to leak or collapse. That's not true. They seal them up real nice, so that's not a concern. This was the big one for me. You have to have a southern exposure on your roof. The best place for me to put solar is on my west side, and I always thought it had to be on the south. Now that is ideal, but actually west is really good, and as like states like California are really liking people to put it on the west side because it helps the grid. Because in the afternoon, when energy demand is high, you generate a lot of energy. And I'll come back to that when I talk about hourly pricing, because I'm at hourly pricing. And as I mentioned, it won't increase your taxes. So those are some common myths. Just real quickly, how does it work? So here we have the sun shining, which I wish it was doing today, but at least it's not raining. So it shines on the array, and that array creates DC direct current electricity. Now, our homes use alternating current, so we have to convert that. There's one of two ways to do that. So right here you see a central inverter. So that means all the electricity comes down here is DC, gets converted to AC by that inverter, and then it goes into your electrical panel here, and then it powers your home. So typically it goes in the bottom of the panel, and if you have loads like light bulbs and things, it'll take care of those, and if there's any extra, it goes through the meter and goes to your neighbors. So that's typically how it works. Now my house, I have microinverters. So on my roof, it converts the DC to AC electricity. So I don't have this central inverter. It just comes down and goes right into my electrical panel here. All right.
What's
Again,
the advantage or disadvantage of that, Mike?
Well, so the microinverters are just slightly more efficient. And then it reduces the voltage. So for like firefighters and emergency responders, you know, the voltage on the roof gets pretty high. And if they're trying to stop a fire, now that's why we have a way to turn off the system, but it's a higher voltage. So it's safety. It's a little safer from that standpoint. It's much lower voltage, and it's slightly more efficient, also slightly more expensive. So, you know, they have their advantages. It kind of depends on each person making that decision. I would say most of the systems installed now in Illinois would have that central inverter. And some of it depends on the size. Like if it's a smaller array, microinverters will probably might cost less. A larger array, it might cost a little more. So I recommend, if you're looking at putting it on your home, get a quote for each and see what the benefits are. Did that answer your question, Irene?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, my story. That's the little bit about solar. I didn't really think too much about energy until the energy crisis, and I started asking questions about where does all this energy come from, and so that got me interested in it. And then when I was in 8th grade, I did my science project on alternate energy sources, and I made a solar oven. And in researching all the alternatives, I was like, wow, solar, why aren't we doing that everywhere? It makes the most sense. So it was always in my mind. I'm an engineer, and what I wanted to do was go work in the solar energy industry. But when I got out of college, there were no jobs there. So that's my array, and I think I'm going to do a little switch up here. I'm going to show you some pictures of my array, and then we'll come back, and I'll show you some of the details. So bear with me while I get up and walk around here. So what you're seeing on the screen I'm sharing is the first part of the array that we installed back in 2012. And now I'm sharing my other camera, so you can see what it looks like now. Is what we put, and these are polycrystalline modules. And like on today, can you tell that you can see some reflection? You probably see my chimney and other things in it. On a pretty blue sky day, you can see clouds. So when people say it doesn't look good, I'm like, well, I can see clouds on my roof if I wanted to. It looks better than shingles. And then on the left side, that's what we added in 2015. So that's what it looks like now. I guess one thing, I don't know if you can see this. You see those, they're raised about 3 or 4 inches off of the edge of the roof. So that's nice to get some airflow to keep them cool, because they like it cold. They don't like it hot. So go ahead and ask questions. I'm going to walk over to my house now and show you what comes off of the roof. show you how it goes into my house, and I'll probably show you my heat pump too, since I'm over here.
Why did you install it in two different times? Cost?
Well, you know, I didn't know. Part of it was cost. We were looking at energy in our home and being more efficient. And so we were looking at other things like windows. And so part of it was talking with my wife about prioritization, like do we do windows first? And so my geeky engineer, the reason we put it in is I evaluated the energy savings from windows versus solar. There is no comparison. Go solar. You know, a lot of people will say that, you know, get efficient first and then put solar in. If I would have done that, I'd just now be looking at solar. So a lot of people will say that. This is just Mike's opinion. I would look at overall a plan to get efficient. And if you know, like I knew there's no way how efficient we get. I'm going to need 4 kilowatts. So I'm doing that first because I wanted to learn. And I figured if I put it on, I'd learn, because west facing is not the ideal. And I don't know if my roof there is 26.5 degrees. So that's not as good as 18 degrees, for example. So you lose some production. And so I part of it, Irene, was the expense because I paid cash for it. Part of it was I wanted to learn. Part of it was because people told me, you know, I had that chimney in the middle, you know, and they said, oh, it was too much shade, which I later went up on the roof myself and did an evaluation, and that wasn't true. So those are some of the reasons I didn't do it all at once. And once we got it, then, you know, my wife saw what was doing, and she's like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at the rest of the roof. That's what I did. All right. Did that answer your question, Irene?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is what's coming down on the side of my house. I have conduit run on the side of my house. Sometimes you can run it inside of your house. And my parents have solar, and it was kind of put on the side of their house is by the garage, and it just dropped right through the roof, right down to their load center. That was sweet. But you could see I've got a 2-story home, so it would have been prohibitively expensive to do that. So it comes down the side of my roof. And then this big box here, this has circuit breakers in it. So again, I have microinverters. I have 3 branch circuits. So kind of divided the roof into 3. And there are 3 circuit breakers in there. So I could turn it off if I wanted to with those circuit breakers. See, I've got that one locked up. Down here, this is a lightning arrestor. This is there really to protect the array, not to protect my house. So it's like a one-time use. If it gets hit by lightning, it get blown up and hopefully save my modules. Next to that is a disconnect switch. So that's where if there is a fire or something, first responders can turn this off. My neighbors could do it as well. That'll turn off my array. And then there won't be any voltage up on the roof. So it goes through there, and then you'll see it goes down, and then there's a hole in my house, and that goes down to the circuit breaker box in the basement. Now I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. If there is extra energy that I'm not using, it comes back through the meter, and it goes out to the grid. So it goes to my neighbors. And so most days I'm powering my neighbors' homes because I'm producing extra electricity. And I think I mentioned that until last year, I would have provided 100% of the energy used for my house and for a car. But then we got this guy. So we got this heat pump, and it's pretty cool. But now I shifted my highest month of energy use from July to January, because now it's heating the house too. So my electricity demand went up a lot. So now I'm looking at, okay, I need to add some more solar. And so maybe we'll talk about community solar in a little bit too. But so I've got a heat pump, trying to electrify everything. And so like our lawnmowers, and we have a snowblower, it's electric, everything everything we're doing is we're trying to get everything electric. All right, so that's what it looks like on the outside. Any questions from that?
So I don't understand, when you say the electricity, if you have excess, it goes to your neighbors. What's the benefit to you of that?
Well, the utility keeps track of it, and I'll show you that shortly. I'll talk about how the utility keeps track of it. So I have a smart meter. I think most of us in Illinois probably have smart meters by now. Maybe not so many, everybody in Ameren territory. But I'm guessing Stefan probably has a smart meter. He's from Peoria. Stefan, I'm from Peoria. So, but the utility keeps track. And we're on a system called net metering, and I got a couple slides on that.
Okay,
So I'll show you that in a minute.
thanks.
All right, so this is kind of what you just saw, although this is when there are no leaves on the trees. So this is my first array, and then when they came back, they put it over here and they put it here. And the installers had told me it didn't make sense to put it over here because of all this shade. Shade definitely is not solar's friend. But I went up on the roof with a little way to analyze shade. And I'm like, no, it makes sense. And then I added a little bit over here too. So my modules these are 240 and these here are 280. Now on roofs, they're maybe 310, more likely they're 310, 320, 300. So they get more efficient over time. But that's what it looks like now. This is what I didn't show you here. So I showed you all this over here. So when it comes in on the house, there's a breaker here. And it's always going to be at the bottom of your electrical panel. And this is called backfeeding. Now today, because of COVID-19, I would say all installers are trying to do the connection on the outside of the house, so they don't even have to come into your house. But I think probably more when Peter and I installed, it was more doing this where it's backfed into your circuit breaker box. And so the power comes here, it goes up the bus. So behind this, there's a copper bus bar. It goes up here, and then if my circuits are needing it, it goes and feeds the circuits. If not, it goes through my main circuit breaker and goes out to the grid. Now, I have a 10.8 kilowatt array, and so I have a 50 amp circuit breaker here. So theoretically, I have a 200 amp circuit breaker here. I could have 200 amps coming here and 50 amps coming here. That'd be 250. I have a 200 amp bus down here, so that could cause fire. So what I had to do is replace my main breaker from a 200 amp to a 175 amp breaker. Just something to think about. If you put in a larger array, you may have to do the same thing. Or the other option is, which is what installers are pretty much doing today, is they just make the connection outside the house. Then you don't have to worry about any of that limitation. All right, any questions on that? So probably you don't have to worry about that because installers are really just trying to stay out of the house and they'll make the connection outside. All right, so this is what I was saying, that, what is the system power? I have a volt, saw the heat pump, lawnmower, snow blower, everything we're electrifying. All right, Irene, your question is net metering. So the way this works, the utility keeps track of what goes in and what comes out. So during the day, I'm sending a lot to my neighbors, and they keep track of that. And then at night, of course, the sun is down, so I'm using energy from the grid, and they just keep track of it. Now, there's two ways you can do this. There's kind of classic net metering. Maybe I'll talk about that first. Whoa. Wow. Hang on a second. Just lost my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Any questions while I'm pulling this back up? Okay, here we go. So with net metering, the utility keeps track of what's coming, what you're getting from the grid, so from grid, and what you're sending to the grid. And so it keeps track over the month, what goes both ways, and then you pay on the net. So in this case, we sent 600 kilowatt hours to the grid and used 420 kilowatt hours from the grid. And so we were a net producer that month. So we get that credit, and your utility, ComEd or Ameren, is going to keep track of that for the whole year. And then once a year, they zero it out. So mine zeroes out in April, so I lose a little bit in April every year. The first time that happened, I was a little bummed out for about an hour, but then I got over it. But so they never give you cash. They just keep track of your credit. So it's kind of like a bank account. So in this month, I've got 180 kilowatt hours added to my bank account. And so for me, until I got the heat pump, I usually have a positive credit from March through September. And then I use that credit in October, November, December. So that's how that works. Now, hourly pricing. Oh, wow, I did it again. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my PowerPoint. I'm going to try one more time, and if it crashes on me again, I'm going to have to apologize and just try to paint a picture another way. Okay, can everybody see my screen now? It says hourly pricing at the top.
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing Peter nod. Okay, so I have hourly pricing. That's another option you have. And in that case, the bill still shows inflow and outflow, just like with net metering, classic net metering. But in this case, what I pay or get credit for is what I use times the hourly price. So it says in this hour, I use so many kilowatt hours. What was the hourly price? If I'm taking that from the grid, that's a charge. Keep track of that. If I'm sending to the grid, same thing. What's the hourly price for that time period? How much did I send to the grid? And at the end of the month, it adds all that stuff up. And so the biggest change from kind of classic net metering to hourly pricing is all about the supply. And so, so you'll see this electric supply charge, that's the inflow times the average price for that. It times the average price, but it's done every hour. And then this capacity charge is kind of a big difference. So you'll see it's 29 cents now. What they do is they have to reserve, they kind of charge residences like they would a commercial property. And they have to have a reserve of capacity for peak times. So this is their estimate of what they have to reserve for peak times for me. So they have to reserve 0.05 kilowatts, which is like a couple of light bulbs. It's like nothing. So they charge me 29 cents a month for that. Basically, it means I'm helping with their peak demands. It kind of makes me feel good that I'm helping them with their peak demands. That's a nice thing about going solar tree. You're helping utility, you're helping the grid handle peaks, because when the peak happens on the grid, the sun is out. So that's a good thing. So that's a big difference. Now, the first year, it was $11.36. And every person I've talked to that's gone to hourly pricing, the first year, they kind of pull something out of the sky and say, this is our estimate of what it is. And then through the year, they kind of track it. So the first year it was quite a bit higher, but you can see it saved like $130 some from going to their estimate to the real data. So I pay 29 cents a month for that. And then the net metering credit, it still says net metering credit. It's the same thing like supply credit. Every hour, they say, what did I send to the grid and what was the hourly price? Did I get that credit? And so that's what this is for. So I say the average price because at the end of the month, it kind of becomes an average, but it's done every hour. So these are the big differences. All right, and then the bill looks a little different because it has a generation credit. That's basically all the things that say net metering. So I got $80 of generation credit. And then this month overall, I had a $41 credit. Add that to the $7 credit I had before, and now my remaining credit is $49.53. And so it's like a bank account. So that typically goes up through September, and then I work it down after that. And then if there's anything at the end of April, like maybe there'll be $10, and they zero it out. So whether you're on hourly pricing or classic net metering, it's the same thing. Once a year, you choose April or October. If there's any credit there, they take it out. So Irene, did that answer your question?
Yes.
About how that works? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a debate about which is better. I switched to hourly pricing. I've been on it for 3 years now. It saves me money. The first year it did not. And I think every situation is different. I wouldn't say everyone should go to hourly pricing because you don't get credit on the retail rate. So for example, this comparison price is 6.473 cents. If I'm on classic net metering, that's what I get credited. If I'm on hourly pricing, it might be, for this hour, it might be 1 cent. It might be 2 cents. It might be 29 cents. It just varies. So I think it depends on your situation. I recommend you look at going to hourly pricing. And it probably makes more sense if you have an array that covers a high percentage of your electricity demands, because then that capacity charge is going to be really small. Because on the hot days, which is where this gets calculated, I'm producing. So definitely something to consider as you're going solar. All right. The financials, some of the results. I put in this 4 kilowatt array. I look at this as a long-term investment, and I look at what I said before. It's the only investment in your home. It will save you money, increase your property value, won't increase your taxes, and brings you joy and happiness. But it is a financial investment, and I look at it long-term. So I look at this internal rate of return. and I look at the risk. So the risk is similar to maybe a municipal bond, tax-free municipal bond, which might be, I don't know, 2% return over time. So if I can get 2% return, it's probably a good investment. Well, I got 8% return back in 2012 when it was a lot more expensive. So to me, that was a great investment, 4 times what I would have been happy with. And then in 2015, it got even better. So look at the same thing. Think of a low risk return that's going to give you 12.4% today. That's outstanding. So it's a great financial investment, as well as being great for the environment. And it's even better today with the incentives that are available today. And another reason I wanted to do it is because of my carbon footprint. So me being a geeky engineer, I calculated how much CO2 I was throwing up in the air, and then how much, just from electricity, how many semi-trailers would I fill every year? And it was almost 69 semi-trailers. So when I put in that 4.1 kilowatt array, I had this slide, and I started putting green X's every time I saved that much CO2 from going up into the sky. And so now this graphic's a little old. Saved over 52 tons of CO2, which would fill more than 229 semi-trailers. So I think that's what I wanted to cover today. What other questions do you have?
I have a question. I thought you could either buy the system outright, or you could pay for it over time, over 20 years or something. What is that?
Well, there's different ways to get it. I pay cash for both of them. And I used to teach classes in solar for ISCA, and one of them got into detail on financials, and people would say, because I would talk about loans, and they said, did you ever look at a loan for your house? I'm like, no. Well, then I did. And I'm like, shoot, I should have got a loan. So loans are a good way to go. With mortgage rates, if you have a home, refinancing and adding into that is probably the cheapest way. But there are a lot of loan options. So that's definitely one way to do it. And you can save money right away without putting a lot down, but overall it's going to cost you more, but it's spread out over time versus a big downstroke of cost, which is what I did. So loans are a really good option. You can also, there are some organizations that will do some leases. They release it to you. So there's some options there for the financing, definitely, Irene. So I would definitely look at a loan. There's a credit union called the Clean Energy Credit Union. It's part of our parent organization for ISCA, and they have some really nice loan rates too. What is it? Clean Energy. If you go to the ASES, American Solar Energy Society, there will be a link to this Clean Energy Credit Union. So that I would definitely look at the loans. It's a good way to go. Did that answer your question, Irene?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. What other questions do you all have? I don't see anything in the chat. Oh, and Stefan, you installed in December. Okay. There are no other questions?
Well, thank you. I'm going to leave then. Take care. Bye.
All right, good luck, Irene. All right, well, I guess if there are no other questions, thanks for joining, and good luck going solar. ISCA is a great resource, so check it out. And if you want a Tesla, we have a raffle going now, so check that out too. And thanks for coming. Stefan, enjoy your array. What's it like in Peoria today? Oh yeah, Stefan, go to the heat pump. Definitely. You know, so Stefan, what I would say on the heat pump is look at mine is oversized. And if you look at oversizing it, find someone that knows about heat pumps, because a lot of the HVAC people, they just install stuff. So I would look at oversizing it, because